Welcome to Financial Investing Radio, where you'll learn the secrets for consistent, high-probability returns in the financial markets for additional income to change your life. Grant applies consistent, high-probability trading systems for the financial markets. He's only recently started sharing these tried and true market secrets. As a gift to listeners, Grant is offering his roadmap to high-probability financial control. Go to financialinvestingradio.com and download yours today. Now, here's your host and trading veteran, Grant Larson.
Hey everybody, this is Grant Larson. Thank you for joining Financial Investing Radio. I am so glad you're here with me today. What an exciting opportunity I have today, as I've been given the chance to interview a real estate expert. This guy knows his stuff. He is working with an incredible market and has some incredible techniques and tips on lessons that he's learned around this fascinating area to grow and build our wealth. And so I'd like to introduce Zach Morrow to you. Zach, thank you for joining.
Hey, Grant, thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to get to visit with you guys and hopefully bring some good value to the audience and get to share a little bit more about what we do.
That's awesome. That's awesome. In fact, Zach and I met each other, I was probably only, 2 or 3 weeks ago. It wasn't that long ago, right?
Yeah, actually, just a couple weeks ago through another podcast. And so really blessed to be able to spend this time and get to grow this relationship. I'm really excited about what you guys do.
Yeah, someone else in my family was doing some podcast stuff and turned to me and said, "Oh, hey, you ought to take a look and talk to this guy Zach and look at what he's doing." I was like, "Oh, that's awesome!" Now you work with an organization. Is it Boron Capital? Am I pronouncing that right?
Yes, that's correct. Boron Capital.
Very good. All right, good stuff. So invite my audience to take a look at them and see what they're doing. Now, Zach, I want to sort of roll back, maybe not to when you were born, but, let's go back a little bit. Talk a little bit about your background and what got you started in really investing in general. You're doing some real estate stuff, no doubt, but can you sort of give us your origin story? What got you started with this?
Yeah, great question. And so for me, I'm just a regular guy. Coming out of high school, I joined the Marine Corps, and during that time, I actually worked on a presidential security force and was in a department of the White House, top secret facility, and it was really interesting. And so I'm sure most everybody knows, when you hit this, there's always a point in everyone's life where things start to change and we start making progress forward and we're moving forward and we're not exactly sure where we're headed and how we plan to get there. We just know we want to be moving forward. And at that point, I wasn't sure where I wanted to end up, but I knew a few things. I knew that I wanted to be in control of where I was going. I wanted to be able to provide a certain, lifestyle for my family and for my future. And so during my time in the Marine Corps, I started learning and studying. And one thing I learned there was that I wanted to go into business for myself. And at that point, the only thing I really knew was that I wanted to have a bit more freedom. I wanted to be able to feel like I had the opportunity to grow, because I think so often we end up in this place where we're kind of following the steps that have been laid before us, and you just feel like there's not much opportunity in front of you. The progression doesn't look how you want it to look. And that's really where I was at. I was at a place where I didn't know what I didn't know, but I just knew that there had to be something more. And so it's interesting. So what I decided was I didn't really know anything about investing. I didn't have any money, I just had kind of a steady paycheck. And
okay,
at that point, all I was doing.
Let me ask you something on that, Zach. So you're saying, what you had was desire. You had desire, but you had no money.
Exactly. Yeah, absolutely.
And that's good. So how did you invest your desire, right?
Yeah, and that's really where it all starts, Grant. And I really appreciate the way you phrased that question, was because as much of, and the desire for me wasn't even necessarily how do I go make more money? It was just, how do I create a life that I would like to live? And so I started thinking, okay, well, number one, by being in the Marine Corps, one of the things you realize is that there's a high requirement to put your job before your family. And so that was, that was the first thing I knew that I didn't want to have to do.
Wow.
And so I thought, okay, well, what's the solution? Well, I need to be in control of, you know, my job placement, or be in a position where I could dedicate or keep my family first. And so that was kind of the first pivotal point of, how do I accomplish that? And so at that point I thought, well, okay, well, I need to be in charge. So I just started, when I left the Marine Corps, I started my own business. And you know, once again, you know, wasn't completely sure what I was doing, had no prior experience for it, but I knew the industry I was going into, and I decided to go ahead and just bootstrap it. And I started my own business. And over that time, I'm like, okay, well, I need to grow businesses. That's how I'll grow my wealth and things like that. And so,
are you saying that you got into the business to help build other businesses?
No, not exactly. What I'm saying is, I started my own business. And I'll just tell you, it was actually a fitness business. And because through the Marine Corps, they were doing a lot of physical, I was in charge of all the physical readiness for our security company. And so I was taking those skills. It was just allocation of resources, if you want to look at it a big picture.
Hey, Zach.
I took an audit of.
Hey, Zach,
yeah.
how many push-ups can you do?
Well, I don't know. I mean, maybe on the next show, on the next show, we'll see. On the next show, maybe we'll do like a challenge or something, and we'll keep it going. But
all right. So you started this fitness business because you'd been like, you know, military guy and all that. Okay, makes sense. You're using what you already had. Gotcha.
Right. And so just thinking, what do I have that can help advance me to the next level? And so I knew I had this particular strength, and I thought, okay, well, let's figure out how to grow and expand that. So it's looking, you know, figuring out, what do I have available? What resources do I have available to help get me to the next step? And so when I saw that, I started this business, and then I grew that and got that going well. And, you know, that takes time. And I was learning. I found out there was, like, once again, many things I didn't know. And so started studying more. And at this point, it was the first time I ran into somebody. I started training a guy who owned a very large investment firm.
Okay.
And interestingly enough, that's the firm I'm with now. So I started training him.
How much weight did you lose? Did you help him lose weight?
So he was already in good shape.
Wow.
But one thing about him, and this is something that is ingrained into me, is disciplines bleed into other disciplines. So for him, that part of his life, every part of his life, he wants as highly tuned and sharpened as he can, because he believes that you live on a certain standard. And so he holds himself to a high standard in all areas, and they bleed into one another. So the better I do in the gym, the better I'm going to do in business. The better I do in business, the better I'm going to be as a husband or a father or what have you. So
that's
just
powerful.
This idea that, setting a new standard for yourself and living up to that. And so, we end up doing some business. I started doing business with him. At this point, I actually, I invested. This is the first time I invested outside of my own thing. I started doing some stuff with him, and then I invested into another business. So my investing really started in businesses. Now I had, I kind of had the IRA, the savings and things like that, just working in your normal, went to a financial advisor and was just kind of letting them manage, the money I had. And
right.
But I hadn't personally done anything outside of investing into businesses. And so a couple years.
So let me try to summarize what you've said so far. So you took the assets that you had, which was you were in good shape, and you used those assets then to build a business to help you then, obviously to get money, but I think you made an awesome point there. The real benefit of it was by investing in your own assets and resources and applying them to help others, and in this case, people working out. You meet this guy who's now got this skill set in investing and build this connection and relationship with him. And now that opens the door for you to ultimately invest in his area. Did I get that?
That's absolutely right. And I want to hit a few key points on that, because what I was telling you was years ago. Well, I'll just kind of speed forward. What ended up happening was I sold some of my businesses, and then eventually where I'm at now is I'm actually full-time. I'm the VP of Investor Relations with that gentleman's firm. And so what I realized then, or at a certain point, and this was the big epiphany for me, this was the thing that really shifted for me. And I was actually speaking with my wife about this last night, and I was just telling her, it's so crazy, because where I was at before, I just had this idea that if it was going to happen, it was going to be up to me. And on the one hand, it's a very positive idea, and parts of it make a ton of sense. But on the other hand, what happened was it became very constricting and limiting for me. And what I realized was that for me to move forward in the way and fashion at the speed that I ever wanted to, if I was ever going to make a change, I had to be able to grow outside of myself. And so if I could share two big takeaways, it's number one, that you have to find positive mentors in the areas you're trying to grow. Find people to connect to. I thought that I shouldn't ask for help, or that, I needed to go figure this all out on my own. But what I realized was that there's experts out there that are able to help you and coach you and to guide you and grow you with exponential speed, kind of remove all the mistakes, right? It's funny. I started with books and with a friend, but now I continuously invest and align myself with other experts in separate fields and in congruent fields to help me grow and advance. Because what I realize is that, I think there's an old saying that goes, if you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to go far, go together. And so there's nothing more powerful than having a great team around you to help elevate you and to help learn and really accelerate the learning curve. And if for everyone listening, I would just say, spend time and evaluate, where is it that I want to grow? And even if you don't know anything about it, it's just, what areas do I know I need to grow in? I knew I needed to grow in my business ability. I knew I needed to grow in my ability to work with other people. I knew I needed to grow in my knowledge of investment. And so it's like, I may not know anything about those areas, but what I should be doing is finding the people, the resources that do to help elevate me there.
And so when you started working with this gentleman at Boron, then it shifted to this world that opened up, this opportunistic situation that not necessarily you had planned for that part. What you had planned was as to how to help people with your own assets. But in the course of it,
right,
he opens up this new world of, hey, Zach, here's how actually now you do investing in the real estate area. Is that sort of the result that came out of that?
Right. And so all of my study and background had really been in working with people and working with business. And so once again, it was a time of me understanding, what resources do I have? What skills do I have? And how can I leverage those towards the future that I want to get to? And so it's the same way now when we're taking inventory and we're looking at investing. It's always about, what resources do I have to invest in areas that need to grow to get me to the next level? And so for anybody that's at a place where they're already have the finances, now it's finding the right people to work with and the experts in those fields to align with to help get your resources to work. And if your resources, if all you have right now is drive, and all you have right now is passion and a vision and a purpose, but you have none of the skills or none of the money or anything that goes with it, well, hey, take those resources and find a way to leverage them and grow them and put them to work for you. I think one of the best investments you're ever going to make is first investing in yourself, because you're going to have to grow to a certain point to be able to get to the next thing. And so that's always the continuous thing.
I have a question for you on that, Zach. How many times as you were getting started did you think, oh, I'm gonna stop, right? I'm gonna give up. I mean, that's got to be the temptation, right? When you've got zero financial assets. You got a lot of passion. You might have other assets, but you don't have the monetary. And so it looks like a forever road in front of you, right? And you can't see when that opportunity is going to come and open the door for you, right? So how do you keep going through that?
Yeah. You know, that is a great question, Grant. It is a really tough road to move into the unknown. And so if the listeners are looking at doing something for themselves or taking a risk or moving forward, what I would encourage you with, or what I would tell you now, is that you have to always start with the end in mind. You have to make a decision and a commitment to being successful, because without the belief and the hope inside of you first, you will not be able to continue on forward. And so one thing that I like to say is that success is built on what we execute today, but it is created by what we dreamt of yesterday.
Now I'm going to put that on I'm going to put that on my wall. Say that one more time. Okay. Say with a lot of passion, Zach. I want to hear some passion. Say that.
Let's
okay?
go.
Say it again with passion.
Success is built on what we execute today, but is created by what we dreamt of yesterday.
Man, is that like a John Montana's law or something? That's impressive. Okay.
You know, it was actually, one of my things now is I spend time continuously, what we could look at as like auditing myself and spending time on, you know, the growth phase. So it's very important to be spending time visualizing where you're wanting to be. So starting with the end in mind, knowing where I'm going, what I'm trying to achieve, what I'm after, and then from there, understanding where I'm at now and asking what resources do I have available to get me to where I need to go. And once you know where you're at and where you want to go, from there it's just drawing the map of the in between. Okay, well, what would I need to do? What must I do to get to that next thing? And
sometimes you don't know, other than just to keep pushing with what you know, something opens. All right, so let me shift to some questions now. So it's been a few years, right, since you've gone through this. You had this desire, this passion, very few assets, just kept your shoulder to the wheel, met this gentleman, the opportunities open, and then that was a whole new learning, stuck with that. All right, fast forward to today. Now you've gone through years and years of investing and experience and growth. What problems have you seen investors deal with, regardless of which market they're in, right? In other words, whether it's real estate or the markets or whatever it is, I gotta believe by now you've seen some challenges that investors deal with that sometimes, you know, hurt themselves.
Yeah, this is a good question, and I want to build a base off of this, but I'm going to use an example from a previous question and then come back to this. So it comes down to mindset. So emotion. Whenever you ask how many times I've thought about quitting, look, I have, and this is why I say it's so important to visualize where you're going and see that as your reality. Because if I continuously look at the present, if I only look at today, and I chose to allow my emotions to reflect the reality of today versus the dream of tomorrow, then I would want to quit every single day, you know, during the buildup process.
Right.
Because what you're seeing around you can create highly volatile emotions and irrational decisions. And so what we have to realize is that in the same way we build our future, managing our emotions based off of what we can actually expect and where we know things are going to go versus what the moment is telling us. So in the moment, if those emotions are creating our decisions, we're going to be making poor decisions, and we're allowing ourself and our state to be tossed to and fro, like, you know, a boat in the stormy waters, versus knowing that everything's going to be fine and where it's going. So it's the same with investments. So one of the biggest mistakes that I see that happens across the masses is that they allow their emotions to be caught up in the moment versus grounded in the truth of what is to be expected and where things are going to go. If you know that the market or your investment is going to have some ups and downs, or you know that there's a downtime that leads to a certain thing, you need to be aware of the process and be able to have forward thinking towards it rather than making rash decisions in the moment based off of irrational emotions. And so that's one of the biggest things I would say is know the purpose behind your investment and what it's actually going to look like, and then don't allow the circumstance of today to create irrational decisions.
So mindset is one of the biggest problems investors deal with.
100%.
You start second guessing yourself, or maybe you don't have enough confidence yet in what it is you've invested in, or maybe you didn't do the homework, right? Maybe you didn't look at, hey, how am I protecting myself? So now I just don't know, and therefore, or maybe I went ahead and I did the investment even though I'm not comfortable on the risk side, right? Or I over.
Absolutely.
I guess it's a combination of those. So you've seen these patterns of self-destructive behavior over many years, right?
Absolutely. And it comes in the form, and even on, the front end. So on the front end, some people make emotional decisions in what they go into, and then it prevents them from going into something, okay, that was a good decision just because of fear or something like that. Look, let's just get clear. No investment is zero risk, right?
Yeah.
And so, but we have to assume some risk, but I would say that you're actually risking more by not doing anything, right? And so let's just get an agreement. We have to assume some risk, but we always want to ask ourselves, how are we mitigating the risk? How are we protecting ourselves today and then helping grow towards tomorrow? And so that happens in one of two ways. I either see people that are so risk averse that they don't end up doing anything. Then they sit around, not earning any money on their money, and which in turn actually loses money, right? The only thing certain about not investing is that inflation is going to grow faster than your money. And so you're going to lose value every single year. So you're literally just losing money by not doing anything.
Yeah, right.
Now, I'm not saying don't have funds set aside for emergency fund and things like that. But what I would say is never save to save. You should be saving to invest and then making quality decisions. But the other thing I see is people chasing the buried treasure, chasing this hidden gem and hoping that they're going to, turn everything over times 1,000 and end up risking something that they couldn't afford to lose, or sitting back waiting for this big boom and realizing that they're just so few and far between, and you can't hardly predict them, that if you would have just invested into something steady with positive growth, you would have actually had a much higher return than trying to wait and gamble on something that you were hoping is going to go big.
Right, absolutely. So you've watched these investors over the years have these problems. It makes me think you and your organization, you figured out a way to help overcome that. Is that right?
Absolutely. And so that just like we would want to do on ourselves, we're always asking the quality questions of how can we better serve our investors? How can we better create something for them that's going to bring quality protection to their money, but also quality production? And so, Grant, you and I were visiting. We're both on the exact same page. One of the biggest things we can do as an investor is making sure that we're finding quality protection for our money. And so that's what we do. And that's one of the main reasons we're in the real estate market, is because we believe that we can bring quality protection and production into investments.
Yeah, I really like that. I really feel that if we can change our mindset, because I like the way that you described that about how important mindset is. If we can establish a mindset, it's not about how much we make, it's about how much we don't lose. And when we look at investment opportunities from that mindset, so that protection's number one, then whenever or whatever we gain above that, then it's frosting on the cake. It seems like when I see investors go the other side, which is always talking just about, oh, what I'm going to make, that tends to mean that I'm often ignoring the protection side, and it opens me up for a big loss. Is that what you've experienced or seen?
Yeah, I would agree. It's actually interesting. The way you word it's very similar. I'll tell you, I'm sure you're familiar with Robert Kiyosaki and the book Rich Dad, Poor Dad. So great principles there. You know, I've done work with Robert, and not plugging, but hey, any listeners, that's a great book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, in terms of mindset and actually how to start thinking there. But so Robert, his mentor, so the real rich dad from Rich Dad, Poor Dad, is a gentleman by the name of Keith Cunningham. And so Keith has, he taught, Robert, essentially everything. And, Keith actually was somebody that mentored us. He sat on our board of directors for quite some time. And one principle from Keith, and this guy, he's done hundreds of millions of dollars multiple times. And so Keith, he says, it's actually easy to make money. It's harder to keep it. And he said, so the deal there is that, for anybody that's in that position where you've made good money right now, being a good steward, making the right decisions with it now that you have it is really the most important thing. How do you continue to protect your wealth and grow it at the same time? And so, because I'm sure, as you know, once you get into the investment world, there's just so much going on, and it can just be information overload. And so what I would, encourage all the listeners to do is not necessarily get in a rush and take time to evaluate the decisions. And if you don't know, it doesn't mean you shouldn't be thinking about it. It doesn't mean don't do anything. It means it should be a priority to invest, and it should be a priority to be learning how and why you want to invest the way you want to invest.
Right. Yeah. That's absolutely, that's really cool that they end up working with them. What an awesome experience. So to sort of summarize what we've talked through, we looked at your background, we looked at how you got started using the assets that you had, which was not much in terms of financial, but lots of desire, lots of commitment, and also you had some strength. So you built a business around it. You met someone that changed your life, taught you about another way to invest assets, still the same principles. Mm-hmm. Now it's using money, which is a good thing.
Right.
But then, then you saw, there's these patterns of destructive behavior, which requires good mindset. And then part of that mindset is not only to help us get into the point where we make money, but also to have the right mindset then to preserve and protect and grow the money that we have. Did I get you?
Yeah, absolutely. And just to reiterate a point, growing and investing or getting to a point of financial freedom, right? And I would say the same way I look at anything else, look, money for everyone is a resource. It's not the means to an end. It's a resource to help grow and create the life that you're looking to create. And so I know for me, and I know for so many people I've worked with, especially, and these are people that are in a position where they're growing their money and they're trying to get to a point, is so many people have odd viewpoints of money and they'll get in their own way in terms of making it. But what I'm getting at is you have to make a decision to be financially free. You have to make a decision to be wealthy. And once you make that decision, you need to continuously make the decisions that are in alignment with that. And so it's setting a goal, deciding, having the mindset to go for it, and then not relenting on that. And so,
that's powerful.
Yeah,
that's powerful. Okay. All right, Zach. So we covered quite a few things. I think you and I are going to get another opportunity to talk again. Yeah. Will you do that for me?
Absolutely. Yeah, I would love to.
Because what I'd like to hear is what it is that you and your organization developed to overcome these challenges, the mindset challenge, the problems that investors have, the need to protect ourselves while building our wealth. I'd love to hear more about that. Will you do that for us next time?
Yeah, absolutely.
Excellent, excellent. Okay, so Zach, any parting comments or thoughts as we wrap up?
Now, I just want to encourage everybody and just say, look, wherever you're at, the best thing you can do in this moment is make a decision towards getting to where you want to go. Make that decision, get clear on the vision, and then from there, start asking the quality questions of what must I do to move forward into that. And as long as you're continuously searching for solutions, you'll always be moving forward. So make a commitment to yourself to move forward and know that it's 100% possible to continue to grow and to continue to find that time and financial freedom.
That's excellent. Thank you so much, Zach. And thanks to you and your organization for letting me spend some time with you. And also, thank you, listeners, for joining. Hey, thanks for this. We look forward to talking to you next time. Until next time, everyone, protect your capital.
Amen. Take care.
Thank you for joining Grant on Financial Investing Radio. Remember to subscribe and leave feedback. Don't forget to download your free roadmap to high probability financial control before you make an investment decision. Visit financialinvestingradio.com now.